The following is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Kevin Dresser and his staff. Now, let's join your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, Jason Bryant.
Another episode of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling, kind of a back-and-forth weekend for the Hokies. We're talking with head wrestling coach Kevin Dresser just after the number 6 ranked Hokies lost to number 5 ranked Missouri 23-19 in Columbia on Sunday evening. First of all, Coach Dresser, this was a dual meet that you looked at it on paper. Things had to go the Hokies' way, and we're talking about the Missouri duel first. You know, the swing matches had to go your way. That's just the way dual meets work. And, what were your overall thoughts and reflections as this duel ended up in Missouri's favor 23-19?
Well, like a lot of dual meets, when you throw 10 guys out there, you kind of have, probably my patent answer would be, mixed results. Just like there was at UNI, there was mixed results. Obviously more positive mixed results, if there's such a thing, than negative mixed results. But, I thought there was places that we did, we looked good. And obviously today I thought there was places that we didn't look as good. And that's frustrating because I thought some of those matches would be, I thought at 41 and I thought at 57 we would compete a little better. I knew 49 was going to be tough, and not that we wrestled bad there, but I don't think we wrestled to win there. I mean, really went out and wrestled, crazy to go win the match. And that's the thing we got to do as a coaching staff, is we've got to get, I just think, more of a sense of urgency and, figure out some things. And that's the good thing about this trip, is you figure out things, and we needed a test. And, we sat down, I think, as a coaching staff right after the UTC match and said, you know what, next Sunday at this time, we're going to know a whole lot more about our guys, and we do. And so that's why you come out here.
So what do you know about your guys at this point in the season?
Well, I know that, I was kind of, I know that Ty Walls is a guy that's separating himself, and I think that's my message. We're getting ready to have a team meeting here in a little bit. We're in St. Louis catching a flight out in the morning, so we're hunkered down for the night, but we're going to have a team meeting here and talk about what time we leave and all that stuff we talk about when you're on the road. But, that's going to be my message is that, if you want to assure yourself a spot in St. Louis in 4 months, and we're in St. Louis right now, so it's almost 4 months to the day, then you have to put the time and the work and the obsession into separating yourself. And, I feel like the one guy that's done that for us probably better than anybody else is Ty Walls, if you watch him wrestle, and just how he's progressed, not just the beginning of this year, but how he's progressed in his career. He's kind of that obsessed guy, and when you're that obsessed with it, usually good things happen. And so he's a guy that, right now, and he's going to have some tough weight. He might be, arguably in the toughest weight class in the nation right now, considering who's there, especially the number one guy. So I'm not putting any pressure on him, because I think he can handle pressure even if I was putting pressure on him. I just am impressed with the way that he approaches the sport and everything he does about it. So I'm not jinxing him. I just think that he's a guy that, more of our guys need to maybe model themselves after. And that's not saying anything bad about anybody else, but I think he's really done a good job and set the gold standard for us, because he likes to go out and score points when, he's the guy, when you got your heavyweight going out trying to major and tech fall guys, and he's a guy that's not a pinner either. He's got to work real hard to get majors and tech falls. That's a pretty impressive effort, and that's what we've got to get across the board.
Yeah, Ty with back-to-back major decisions, one over J.J. Everard of Northern Iowa, who was a national qualifier at South Dakota State before transferring in. Let's go back to West Gym in Northern Iowa before we come back and finish up with Missouri. Joey Dance, this was a big match for him. Dylan Peters coming off an injury. Joey coming off an injury. Ranked number 2 and 3 in the country. High-profile matchup in enemy territory. What did we learn about Joey Dance at this point in the season with that win over Dylan Peters?
Well, Joey looked pretty good against UNI. I still think that, if he wants to put himself in that slam dunk category all the way to Saturday morning, that, you go get a major in that situation, and that might be being critical. But I think if you want to put yourself in that situation where I just blow through everybody to the semis, then you got to do that. You got to, it's 8-3, and you got to go get that. And that sounds greedy, but guys that are great, that are national champions, you got to be greedy. And so it was good. Today I didn't think it was good. I didn't think it was. I think you get a guy that's a backup guy, and if you want to separate yourself and get into that Saturday afternoon, Saturday night conversation, you got to blow through guys like that. I think you do. Otherwise, you set yourself up to be in the second round and draw on a 7th seed or a 11th seed and having a 1-point match and losing 3-2 to Torero. And that's what we have to get past. So, I'm being a little critical of him, and he's done a good job lately, but, he's got to do a good job every minute if he wants to be the guy at the end of the year that's on that top step, not just, every now and then.
Jumping around the weight classes, I want to talk about Zach Epperly a little bit. Taylor Luan came after him pretty hard against UNI, and Dylan Wisman came after him hard against Missouri. These are two redshirt freshmen who see that number 2 right next to Zach Epperly's name, and they're looking for this match to make a name for themselves. I thought when I watched both matches, I thought Zach's poise against a kid like Luan, who's young, he's super talented, has a lot of heart, doesn't care who you are. I thought he really came back and made sure that he didn't get frazzled by the freshman, came back and got the win. And then with Wisman, obviously there's some familiarity there with both being from Virginia. He sat there and said, I'm going to do Zach Epperly things. It's like, oh, you're going to try this? Watch this. I'm going to sit on you and pin you. So thoughts on Zach's performances? Maybe not the prettiest of performances, but he seemed to show that he didn't get mentally frazzled in either of those situations.
No, and you know what? If I had to give an all-star, a gold star for the weekend, just in terms of those two performances, I would give it to Zach. And obviously he had to work his butt off against UNI because that guy came out guns a-blazing, and it was in his home environment. And you said it, he had poise. He came back and took the guy down and rode him out to win that match. And then today, same thing, and these two kids are superstar freshmen. I mean, we know how good freshmen are. Freshmen really aren't freshmen anymore, as good as kids come into college. And so, he gets, to me at least, and is he gets the gold star for me just because of his poise, his maturity. He wouldn't have, he obviously struggled last year at this time. He wouldn't have been able to pull that off last year at this time, even though, he had a hot tournament. Let's face it, if you look at Zach Epperly's year last year, he had one hot tournament. He just happened to have a hot tournament, the right one, but it wasn't, a great year by any standards. There wasn't that consistency. And that's what I'm kind of starting to see now is like, wow, this guy settles in, and these young guys are throwing their very best stuff at him, and he's handling it, and he wrestled hard. I mean, I told the team today before, it's amazing how hard he every time he got taken down or reversed in all those scrambles in the beginning of that UNI match, he popped up right away and got that guy tired just by getting away, because he just kept, he was putting pressure on that guy all kinds of different ways. So he, and obviously I just said with Ty didn't have the competition level that Zach did, but Ty is figured out how to separate himself. And, the weekend before, he beats the 10th ranked guy in the nation, and it's tied going in the third period. He majors him, or should have majored him. I think he beat him by 7. So that just shows you what wrestling, those two guys right now are wrestling the whole match. And that's what every, high school, middle school, college coach is trying to teach, is getting guys to wrestle the whole match. So that's I'm a big Zach Epperly fan after this weekend again.
ZZ Top, Zach Zavadsky with a 2-win weekend, pushed by another tough freshman, as we said, Taylor Luan, tough freshman for UNI, Jacob Holschlag, a really scrappy kid for Northern Iowa's. Doug Schwab's got those guys coached up really well. But then we didn't get to see the full go with Willie Miklas, who's coming off a loss to Jack Deco a week earlier at Old Dominion. What were you really hoping to see with Zavadsky and Miklas, and that match ultimately ending with injury default?
Well, first off, Miklas is a great kid. I hope everything worked out good there. They just got in a scramble and he tweaked his knee, so I think it looks like he's going to be okay. But I really felt like Zavadsky was moving good and had the right mojo going. And sometimes with him and a few other guys, it's so much body language. These guys have to learn body language and in preparing positively just by the way you warm up and the way you carry yourself. And I saw that out of Zach today. I just felt like he had a bounce in the step, and he was excited, and sometimes he doesn't look excited, but he was excited today. So I think he would have really rolled. I think he would have, but he's going to get to wrestle that guy again. He was, at UNI, he was so, and I think, sometimes he wants everything perfect, and he scrambles so well that he doesn't even need to have things perfect. He's just such an athletic guy that he needs to let it fly a little bit more. I think he's a little conservative, and I saw him open it up today, and so just sure you like winning a match, but we don't like winning a match that way. I would rather have him slugged it out and win 12-5 than to have to win that way.
Yeah, with a guy like Miklas who scrambles incredibly well for the weight class, so what was the game plan coming in for that match? And obviously you're still going to have to wait and to see him again to kind of implement that game plan. But, with a funky guy like Miklas, he's very hard to wrestle.
He is, but luckily Zavadsky, I'll stack up Zavadsky with anybody in the nation in scrambling. He can scramble with anybody. He's so athletic. If he can incorporate his the solid stuff, the good solid leg attacks, and, with what he does, I think he's going to have a really good year. And so I see him blossoming right now. Just by looking at him, I see him blossoming a little bit. So we got to keep that going.
Performances by Jared Haught with a win over Jared Bartell, who's not exactly a slouch by any means at Northern Iowa on Friday night, and then going 2-0 with Jaden Cox, the returning Olympic bronze medalist and two-time national champion. This is where, people will look at it and see Cox's Olympic freestyle medal and his couple national championships. Guys, he's good on his feet. Well, this is where I think you were talking about the separation between Ty and the fielder. He's trying to separate himself. Is this kind of a situation where Jared Haught needs to now close that gap, because you've actually seen where the gap is? You've seen where Jaden Cox is extremely tough. We know he's hard to score on. We really know how good he is on the mat now. And where's the work going to happen now with Jared to work on his bottom game?
Yeah, he's got to work on his bottom game. I mean, he's he should have got away today. I mean, everybody's out there tweeting and texting and everything that he wrestled tough and everything. But I don't think they put moral victories in the win column last time I checked. And so you got to win when you get in that situation. Forget about, I'm not saying that, I don't know. I'm a little frustrated. I love Jared Haught, and he works his tail off. I just think when you get in a situation like that, you have the guy's leg up in the air, you fight to get the leg back to the middle of the mat, and you finish. And, and then if all you got to do is get away and get in your feet to give yourself a shot. And I love him, and he works hard, but I think he doesn't give himself enough credit as hard as he works. And he's kind of one of those guys. He's probably the second or third most obsessed guy we have on the team when you put all that time and work in. And we've seen how good he's gotten in the last year. Let's face it, everybody's like, wow, that guy's improved. But I still think that, he kind of blew an opportunity, and I think he was too conservative at UNI. I think he's, got to open it up, and I take that as a challenge, because I'm sure he'll hear this, but I take that, he needs to take that as a challenge, because that's how much we think of that guy. He's just, he's so coachable. It's crazy, and he just needs to let it fly and open it up. And we saw a little bit of that tonight. I wish he would have seized the moment a little bit more. So, but I think he knows he's in that game. I got to see that it really bothers him to lose that match. I don't know if I've seen that yet, but he should. He should not sleep tonight, because that's how close he was.
A couple of the performances I've got to believe the coaching staff really wishes they could have had another shot at, and they're probably fairly disappointed at, and that would be probably Dennis Gustafson's performance at 141 and Sal Mastriani at 157. On paper, I thought both these were, especially Gustafson, once I heard it was Zach Sinnen getting the call, that I thought that was pretty much a match that the Hokies were favored in. And I thought the way Mastriani wrestled on Friday night was kind of, he's a guy he's got third period gas. I was like, I'm watching the match with Valley going, okay, he's down early. Okay, this is something he never actually got that third period gas back. Kind of got taken out of the match. I mean, what's Dennis got to do? I mean, it's an escape, and it's a riding time point. And if you look at either of those matches, they go the other way. The other way, Hokies win this duel.
Yeah, I mean, those two matches hurt us today. Let's call it what it is. They hurt us. I mean, we didn't wrestle well at 141, and we didn't wrestle well at 157. We didn't. I mean, and they've been doing a good job up to this point. But you know what? They really hadn't been tested by quality guys, and they both got, especially, Sal got a, fairly top 10 guy, and, Dennis's guy was pretty good last year at 33, but, for whatever reason, for a guy that throws it out there, he didn't do much, and everybody can say, well, the other guy stalled, but, Dennis didn't make enough attacks today. He didn't make enough attempts today, and And but I don't Sal kind of was reacting to that guy all day long, and usually Sal gets guys reacting. So it just comes down to where they want to be at the end of the year, and I think the resources are there. Just they're going to have to really dig deep now and make it important to them. And I'm not saying it's not important to them, but I think it could be a little more important to them. And they got to rock and roll, and they're going to get a chance to get out there in Vegas in a tough environment. That's our next competition, and you got to turn it around. And I think they can. I mean, I've seen it. It's frustrating because they are inconsistent, and you got to get consistency. And we've got guys that are doing it that they can watch, and so we just got to get some consistency there. And like I said, they get a shot here in about 12 days.
You've preached since we started this program that the guys that get the opportunity to wrestle in the lineup, they've got to seize the opportunity. They've got to make the most of the opportunity. These two duels over at Northern Iowa and Missouri, Dom Latone at 133 and Mike Ciavaro at 165, both have given up bonus points. As a matter of fact, Latone has been decked twice and Ciavaro's given up 2 majors. That's 10 points in a dual meet. What do these guys have to do? I realize Jaden Ironman is extremely funky as a redshirt freshman. He's got some great training there. Of course, his dad, Mike Ironman, knows that funk, and he's going to throw some things at you that are really hard to expect. But what do Dom and Mike need to do here to not just limit the damage, but be in situations where they can win these matches?
Well, I think you had 2 different situations here, although their first time getting thrown in the fire, so they're both adjusted. It's one thing to go wrestle the open tournament schedule, because that's a walk in the park compared to what our guys had to do this weekend. Is when you step out there, you and I, and everybody's sitting on top of you, and then you come here and everybody's sitting on top of you. That's why we bring them out here, to put them in tough situations. And so Dom's just a kid that wasn't, he was our, kind of at the beginning of this process, probably was our 3rd or 4th depth guy there, and was going to plan on redshirting him. And then, we have a guy quit. We have a guy that's ineligible. We have a guy that moves up a weight. All of a sudden you go from, kind of 4th of the depth chart to 1st. But I still like him. I think he's a guy that's going to improve. He's obviously not ready for this level of competition all the time yet, but I see he did some good things at UNI. We just got to keep progressing, and this experience is going to help him down the road. He's going to take some lumps. Ciavaro is a kid that has been around for a little bit, but again, he's been doing the open tournament circuit, and I've seen improvements out of him too. I mean, I think all of us as coaches do is want to see our guys improve, and I've seen some improvements out of him. I mean, just he fought his tail off against one of the best pinners in the nation and only gave up a major decision. So to me, there was some impressiveness there just in the fight, and he seems to be he's getting the guy's legs a lot more. He's just not finishing his takedowns, and so that's something we can work on. But I don't have a problem with those guys right now. I think they're in a situation that they probably weren't quite ready for yet, but that's the only way to get ready for it. There's never a perfect time.
Yeah, in the case of Latone, I'm curious on how the coaching staff is taking him when he's been in 2 situations where giving up the fall, and that gives the home crowd huge momentum. How are you going to have to stay on top of him to make sure that his confidence doesn't get frazzled here? Because as you said, you're throwing him into the fire a bit, and he's been in situations where he's gotten pinned and the home crowd and the place has erupted. And, that's kind of got to shake somebody's confidence, even somebody that's, was good in high school, or somebody that's, just coming into the lineup in college. What are you guys doing as a staff to make sure that not just necessarily Dom, but the whole team, even in a situation like that, they've got to maintain their focus and say, you're going to take your bumps?
Yeah, you just have to focus on improving, and everybody's at a different level. You've got, you look at Ty Walls when he was a redshirt freshman, and look at how far he's progressed. And, he was a guy that took some lumps, and, he went on like a 5 or 6 match skid, and then he'd win 1, he'd lose 2 or 3. And that was our focus then, is just getting better and, and being coachable. And I think he will be that way. I think the one thing about these 2 guys is I see 2 really coachable guys. And to me, that's what I'm big about, as a coach. I just like guys that pay attention and listen and want to get better. And so that's all we can do there is those guys are going to have their day. I think they really will.
Haven't mentioned the performance of Solomon Shishko yet, but we're seeing him at the new weight class. Beats a pretty solid kid in Max Thompson on Friday night, and then has a 2-time All-American Levon Mays. Tight match till the 3rd period where Mays, kind of opened up the gap a little bit. And, what's Saul got to do? Is he still adjusting the weight class, or is it something that's just today just got beat by a better guy?
He did a really good job Friday night. I mean, it was a freshman, but he's supposed to, a really highly recruited nationally freshman. and redshirt freshman. So, the guy's been around a little bit. I felt like he did a good job. He obviously ran into more of a man today. And, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, personally, I think he's an in-between guy. I think he's, I'm not sure he's a 149, but I'm not sure he's a 141. So, he's going to have to make that decision. But, right now, I just, this next weekend at Vegas will really tell us a lot. When we go to Vegas in, 10, 12 days, that'll tell me a lot about Solomon. Solomon's personality is sometimes frustrating to me because I'm a type A ADHD times 3 guy, and he's so daggone laid back. I just watch him warm up and his body language, and it's just, oh my gosh. But then he goes out there and wrestles pretty darn good. So, I bite my tongue, and today I just didn't feel like he got, didn't work hard enough out there to win that match. Now, I know it was a tough opponent, but I think he had to work a little harder because I didn't, come off the mat, and I just knew he was tired. But I think if you're going to beat a really good guy, you're going to have to be really tired when you come off the mat. So that's my old Coach Gable theory that, when you come off the mat, you're supposed to be exhausted because you put it all out there. And I just didn't see him do that till the end. And we've seen that a couple other times this year. We saw it at Edinburgh. So, you and I went out and got after it right away, and he's sure good when he does that. But, he had a pretty good guy today. So we'll see. I'll have a lot firmer direction, with Solomon and what we need to work out with him after we get back from Las Vegas, because that's going to be a great test for him.
Now, road trips are always something that tests the mettle of the wrestlers, and some of the guys are pretty much documented in terms of managing their weight. How did Joey manage his weight as a senior on the road, and how do some of the younger guys manage their weight classes, in some cases new weight classes? I mean, is their weight control under control?
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody's did a good job. I think, probably the guy that, was cutting the most weight from the beginning of the year to now is probably Zach Epperly. He did a really good job. He didn't do probably a great job the first week or so, but he did a really good job this weekend, and obviously he had 2 guys that wanted to kill him. He had 2 guys that were, especially the UNI guy and even the Missouri guy, those guys both came out thinking they were going to win. And when you think you're going to win, then you got to be ready to go. And, they didn't take a back seat to Zach Epperly, third in the nation, either one of them. And so I thought he did a really good job. But, I think we did for early in the year. We have, like I say, this year's different. 30 or 41, 49, 57 really aren't cutting much. So those guys that, cut some weight last year, they're not, they're real comfortable. And we've got, I'd say we don't have as much of that issue. And Joey did a really good job with it the last month. So obviously stepping out there in a 1 hour weigh-in with Peters and performing like he did, I think he's at least this weekend, and we can't turn our back on Joey, let me tell you that. So, but at least this weekend we got a pretty good control for November.
Yeah, so at this point in the season, with the dual meets coming off of 3 straight ranked opponents, Chattanooga, Northern Iowa, Missouri, you're confident that this is the team, this is the lineup, or are you still thinking maybe you work that certification magic and be like, okay, maybe we're going to come back down, or is it just too early to tell?
I think it's still too early to tell. I think it's just let's go to practice tomorrow and get better and see what happens, and then the results and how we perform will dictate, and what we have to work on, where guys need to be, and all that kind of stuff. So I could say we're 4 months from, we're basically almost exactly 4 months away from the NCAA finals on Saturday night right here in St. Louis. So there's still a lot of time in the game.
Yeah, next thing we got coming up, December 3rd, 2nd and 3rd in Las Vegas, Cliff King Las Vegas Invitational. But there's that gap. There's the Thanksgiving break. And this is something that, when you coached high school kids, you had to worry about them getting a little fat over the holidays. Now that you've got a fairly seasoned group of wrestlers at the college level, what do you tell the guys? I mean, how many are going to have the opportunity to go home? I mean, it's a pretty good stretch without competition. I mean, what's the mindset here? You tell your guys, go enjoy the holiday, 1 plate of food, that type of thing?
Oh no, they eat good. But we do control them in the starters and a couple others. All the 10 starters plus a few others they're not going to go home. The guys that are local, probably the Epperly and Dance, can go home for that day to eat. But everybody else stays in town, and we do a big spread at the Dresser house, and we have the coaches and the guys out there. So we'll have everybody out at my house on Thursday, and we'll train all the way through Thanksgiving break. We leave, not this Wednesday, of course, but next Wednesday for Vegas. All the backups and the red shirts, those guys get to go home until Friday. They're all home now. And but we give them with the last couple of years, we've had good results. And and with sending them home. So I think we're sending them home for 8 or 9 days over Christmas. So being the Thanksgiving Grinch that we are, we make up for it at Christmas, if that makes sense.
Well, and this is also an opportunity as you guys have gone out. You've got the ties in Iowa where you're from and getting to wrestle there at Northern Iowa. And, of course, there's big Hokie contingents and alumni contingents all over the place. You got any folks that you want to thank for coming out to see you guys wrestle on the road from these last 2 dual meets?
Oh, gosh, we had a big crew, I think, on our pass list. We had, a whole bunch of people. We blew up our pass list, plus my high school team from Humboldt came out. And so, gosh, I think we had total in our party probably 90 to 100 people. But, you got Zavadsky knows everybody and their brother in Iowa, and St. John's got 10 zillion St. John's in the neighborhood. So we had a lot of Iowa people. Now our pass list at Missouri here had 5 people on it. So we didn't have quite the Hokie love, but we had a good crowd at UNI, fun atmosphere. And so we'll keep trying to do that.
Actually, I want to come back to the Missouri match just for one thing, and this is something that goes to the Moss Arts Center duels. Missouri kind of did the same thing at Jesse Auditorium in the duel on Sunday afternoon. Do you feel like having your guys go through that Moss Center experience is like, okay, we're on a stage, we know how to do this. This is nothing new to us.
Yeah, I can tell you that our guys, nobody got stage struck. At least I didn't think so. I don't think anybody went out there and froze up because they were in a completely different environment than you usually wrestle at. So their stage was a little bit smaller than ours, but yeah, it was a nice environment. Coach Smith put together a great atmosphere, and they got loud, and we let them get loud, and they were loud.
Well, Coach Dresser, appreciate the time on the road. Have a safe trip back to Blacksburg, and we'll see you next time on Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling.
Thank you.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.